So you were an 18-year-old working at Amazon.
Yeah, it was funny actually. I delayed the acquisition a little bit because they weren't sure if they could hire a minor because I was 17 when the acquisition went through.
Have they never hired anyone under the age of 18?
For a time, I was the youngest engineer at Amazon. We were able to confirm.
Wow.
Can I just say, Johnny Dallas, that's an awesome name.
I appreciate it.
Like, do you get that a lot?
I get it a lot, and people say different things of like, oh, you reminds me of a X, and they say a role, and you learn a lot about the person by what role they say. Like some people are like, oh, it sounds like a cowboy. I'm like, okay, you watch a lot of Westerns. Like, oh, it sounds like a football star. I'll say it like drug dealer a lot.
Like, really?
I don't know why. Those are the top
Johnny
three,
Dallas?
I think. It's like, it sounds like a stage name almost.
Yeah.
I can see that. But on that note, welcome back everyone to The Doc, the #1 podcast for shippers, the #1 podcast at Founders Inc. Today we're joined by Johnny Dallas. So you want to give yourself a short introduction so people know who you are?
Yeah, happy to. Hey everybody, I'm Johnny Dallas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zeet.co. We make it easier for developers to interface with their clouds. Psyched to be here today and talk about whatever we're talking about.
Awesome. So I want to just jump into this like off the gun. You started getting into startups when you were how old?
I was 14 when I first started working. I think I started coding when I was like 10 or 12 maybe, but first started working at 14.
Gotcha. And there's a lot of stories around that, I'm sure. But I guess the first question, just really jump into it. What does your social circle look like? Because you didn't go to college, right?
No. So I started working at 14. That was the summer right after middle school, so right before high school. Worked throughout my first summer, or that first summer. Started high school, did 2 years of high school, and then graduated out early, and I've been working since. So I did 2 years of high school, then didn't do college. Been around people in Founders Inc. for the last like 6-7 years. I've been working with many of them.
Okay.
Social circle, I still got friends from high school, and I like try to keep a good balance of people in tech and out of tech. I think it's important. Put a lot of effort into making sure that like because I'm going to be leaving school, I don't want to become a social recluse, right? I don't want to just like be the great programmer who doesn't know how to actually talk to people at all.
Right. And so you left high school after 2 years?
Yeah.
Was that like the Chespy?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Most people don't know about the Chespy. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in California. I left high school after my 3rd year. Nice. But yeah, so for people that don't know, the Chespy is basically a test where you can get your high school diploma after like a 2-hour test. Pretty easy too. Yeah. You don't really need to study for it either. And
well, like a GED, right?
It's kind of like a GED, but if you're under 18. So GED is only after, it's like if you didn't graduate high school and you're over 18.
Okay.
I was 16, so it's California High School Proficiency Exam, CHSPE.
Okay,
Chespy.
got it.
And so people would take their Chespy when they're like 15, and then like some of them would do like 2 years of community college and then go into college when they're 17 and graduate by the time they're 19 with a full degree.
Wow.
Yeah. Or some people end up working at startups.
Yeah. The reason we found the Chespy actually was funny. So I was working at Bebo, and I was basically working full time while going to school in high school. And so I just had this horribly unhealthy sleep schedule. I was like sleeping like 3 hours a night. I was I was at school from like 8 a.m. till 4 p.m., then working from 4 p.m. to like 1 a.m. and then get home at 1:30 or 2, do homework till like 3:40, 4, sleep for a couple hours, wake up at 8, do the whole thing again. And first of all, you can't work full time, actually like 40 hours a week when you're a kid, when you're under 18. But if you read the child labor law of California, you find out that they define a minor as somebody who is under 18 or who hasn't graduated high school. And when you read further into that, graduated high school is somebody who has graduated from an accredited institution or has achieved the Chespy. So I spent one night, instead of doing homework, reading the child labor law code of California and found out that if I took this test and passed, I would be no longer a minor in the eyes of child labor laws. And so I could work full time. And so I was like, all right, I got to take the Chespy. Awesome. And if I succeed, I'm going to not go back to high school next year.
Wow.
And I did.
Wow. And so when you were at Bebo, what were you doing as a 14-year-old? Because they got sold to Amazon, right? Or Twitch?
Yeah, we got bought by Twitch. I joined as a front-end engineer, I guess, or an engineering intern. So that summer after middle school, I'm 14 years old. I get Sean's email. Sean Purry was the CEO. And I just cold email him like, hey man, I really want to be a developer. I know this. I have some dev chops. I really want to be in tech. I don't know how to get better at it. I've done some courses online, but I don't know. It's kind of boring to do it alone. My math teacher can't really teach me that much. My middle school IT department isn't extremely technical. You'll be surprised to hear. Can I just come and sit in your office and watch what you guys are doing? You guys seem like you're legit.
And you just so this is no introduction. You didn't know anyone connected to Sean.
I knew one guy who worked at the company, which is how I got Sean's email.
Okay.
I ran into a neighbor at the dog park.
Okay.
Who I ended up replacing his job when he retired a couple years later.
Wow.
He didn't retire, actually. He moved to a different company. Yeah, so I emailed Sean. I'm just like persistent. Hey, let me come by. And they were working on a social app for teenagers at the time. So Sean saw this and was like, oh, this guy could come and like help us spread to middle schools, and like he could promote it at his school.
Teenage voice in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I showed up and was like, yeah, I just want to be a developer. Let me see what's going on. I'll learn by osmosis.
Okay.
I'll just like sit behind your devs. And he sat me down and was like, yeah, so that whole thing, that's not going to happen.
Okay.
If you're going to be here, you're going to ship. So day one, he said, BuzzFeed quizzes, you got to build me that. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And I went off into the corner and was like, all right, I'm going to figure out how to build BuzzFeed quizzes. So I got hired as like this front end engineering intern, I guess, but gave him a prototype end of the day. Next day met Furkan, who's now the founder of Founders Inc. He was their CTO and actually started working with the engineers, got introduced to them. Over the course of that summer, it was supposed to be a 1-month engagement, turned into 3 months because I just kept showing up on like my 31st day and then my 61st day.
Nice.
And just kept doing things. Taking on more and more scope, became full stack, did backend, did whatever needed to be done, just across the stack until eventually landed on DevOps and operations because we were scaling really quickly and needed more effort there. And I was like, I'll do it. Let's go.
That's really interesting. And so how long were you in this kind of like DevOps role, or like how long were you at Bebo until it got acquired by Twitch?
So I think I was 17 when we got acquired. So I was at Bebo for about 3.5 years maybe. And I think the last year or so, year and a half of that was in that DevOps capacity. And that was when, that was after I graduated high school. So I got the director of operations was my title at the end of it.
Oh, wow.
That's what I got. And then that was kind of the impetus for me to be like, okay, this is actually a legit opportunity. This company is scaling really fast and growing really fast. And my responsibilities are scaling really fast. This feels like something too good to pass up. It would be a waste to just ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
But my high school was ramping up really quickly too. It's going to hit a breaking point. I can't keep doing this.
Right.
So I'll take a year off of high school initially was the scope and checking in a year. I think a year into that, we were about to get acquired. So it was a clear thing to keep going with.
Makes sense. And then how long were you at Amazon, or how long were you at Twitch for?
I was there for about 1.5 years again. Started there and then went into pandemic. That's kind of when Zeet started to come into play of pandemic time, especially the early pandemic. No one really knew what work looked like.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, are we working from home? Are we working in the office? What do we do with our time? And that was some of the milieu that inspired Zeet.
And so you were an 18-year-old working at Amazon or working at Twitch.
Yeah, it was funny actually. I delayed the acquisition a little bit because they weren't sure if they could hire a minor because I was 17 when the acquisition went through. And so
have they never hired anyone under the age of 18?
For a time, I was the youngest engineer at Amazon. We were able to confirm.
Wow.
Because they were like, we think we can, but what are the child labor laws and what are the rules around this? And like,
well, luckily we have a child labor law expert here.
Not something I thought I'd add to my resume, but here we are. And like the Twitch office had like beer on tap, and they were like, do we have to make a special rule for this one under 21 employee? Because he can't have beer on tap. And so eventually it was just like, hey, don't do it. Don't drink it.
Nice.
Be good.
Be good. There you go.
And so how did when you were at Bebo before it got acquired, you were director of operations, right? Were you managing people?
No, we were a pretty small, flat team. I was the entire DevOps and SRE team. So we had actually a team of 2 fairly senior sysadmins who both, one retired and one went to a different company within fairly short period of time. And so we went from 2 very senior to me.
Nice.
And I was still in school at the time. Got to the point where I was like, I was on call because I'm doing DevOps and SRE work. I would get paged all the time while I was in math class or
Yeah.
like doing finals. I was like, this isn't going to keep working because I need to be available full time for this. And so I wrote software. So the DevOps team was entirely automated.
Oh, wow.
And I went with Furcon to AWS reInvent in 2018 to talk about this software. When spoke about this like a software system called Stark that scaled Bebo to every single AWS region, 2,500 concurrent servers under management.
Wow.
Like we're in one of the largest WebRTC live video clouds at the time in 2018. So I was managing the software and the software was doing all the real work.
Interesting. And then when you went to Twitch, because Twitch is obviously like a much bigger company, right? How did you find that like change?
It's very, very different. It was funny because I always felt like we were operating really slowly, but then everybody else in the company was like, damn, this team ships. this team works so fast. So it was much slower, a lot more bureaucracy, a lot more process. My internal barometer is always like rate of growth. Is, you know, can I look at Johnny from a week ago or a month ago or a year ago and say, I'm better than that guy?
Mm-hmm.
I've grown since then. And it felt like it was just slowing down there if I couldn't expand my skill set as quickly. I was like going to become a better engineer maybe, but I wasn't going to learn nearly as much as quickly. And so decided, well, what can I do to just throw myself in the deep end once again? I got the tech internship a couple years ago. Great. I've learned how to do some engineering. Well, I really want to get good at creating things and just making things happen.
Gotcha.
Now I got to learn how to manage people and learn how to make an idea and kind of convey that vision. I'm going to go be a founder.
And that's how Zeet happened.
And so that's part of how Zeet happened. Yeah.
And so Zeet is essentially DevOps. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're building kind of a new layer on top of the cloud providers. If you think of like AWS, you know, made it so anyone with a credit card and an internet connection can go and spin up servers and data centers around the world. Super powerful, but it's gotten a lot more complicated, and you have to really be an expert in AWS or any of the cloud providers to use them effectively. It's an industry built on like tribal knowledge and scar tissue of, I know how to do it right because I've fucked up 10 times before. Right. But as we get more and more developers, that's kind of not fair to make them all repeat the same mistakes. And so what Zeet does is it takes all of these kind of scar tissue, encodes into software, and is this layer on top of the existing cloud providers. So we make it so if you want to deal with AWS, you want to deal with Google Cloud, you want to deal with whatever cloud, you say what you're trying to get done. I want to run this app, and we guide you on the path to make that happen more easily.
Interesting.
So you essentially cut down the number of DevOps I would need. Would you say you can streamline that process, let's say, for an enterprise client?
Yeah, for a team with an existing DevOps function, it's like we augment all of them. They're able to spend their time on the decisions of what should be happening, not writing the nitty gritty code and like dealing with the details that they don't actually want to deal with. For a team that doesn't have DevOps, we can make you go a lot longer without having to hire that person. So we're not trying to replace, we're really trying to augment. But DevOps people are smart. I spent so much of my time at Twitch just like writing the same YAML over and over again. And I was like, this is such a waste of my brain power. I could be doing so much more, but somebody has to do this work. We don't have the systems in place to automate it quite yet. So let's go build the systems.
And so what was the turning point where you were like, okay, now it's time to leave Twitch, or now it's time for me to like go full time on Zeet? And you have a co-founder, right?
Yeah. So I got a co-founder. His name's Zeet. He's the CTO. He worked at Bebo as well. So this is our third company working together.
So what were you guys doing before? So Bebo, Zeet, and what's the other one?
Twitch in between.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were together at Bebo, building some of that like live video infrastructure. He was on the ML side of things and I was on the infrastructure side of things, but we worked together really closely. Then the two of us paired super heavily at Twitch. And then when COVID hit, a lot of downtime, a lot of engineers worked on side projects, and we tried to build this thing. It was like a live video office replacement. I think a lot of people try to build things like this. Gather is now the, I think, market winner here.
Gather's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, we use Gather for our office now.
Nice.
But we tried to build this thing, built like a prototype in a weekend, and got to the end of the day, wanted to try it out with a friend who was in New York. We're like, okay, cool, it works in our house.
Yeah.
Can we actually get somebody across the country to use it? And we had to go deploy it to make that happen. And so we looked at all of the tooling out in the public market for how can we actually deploy this thing. We look at like Heroku and Fly and Render and all these past companies. And none of them could actually support technically what we wanted to deploy. They had different restrictions around UDP ports, or we're using GPUs, just like these technical nuances that were just impossible. And we're like, shit, we have to go to AWS. We have to go all the way down to the cloud provider layer. There's no tooling that we can use that makes it a little bit easier to interface with. And even though we'd been doing DevOps for years and automating this and knew this system very well, the prospect of setting up a whole cloud account from scratch at 11:30 at night was so daunting that we didn't get it out within our 24-hour scope, and we ended up shipping at like 3 a.m. And so that was to us a big signal. So we spent the whole next day making a runacontainer.com, just an easy way to run a Docker container. And that eventually evolved into Zeet. But yeah, it was very much a problem born from our own use case. We built it for ourselves, shared it with a couple other friends who were at this hackathon. They shared it with their friends and so on and so on. I got to the point where I was just getting emails all day, and we had like a little thing, Crisp, it's like intercom, little support chat. I was just spending all day getting hammered by these messages. I was like, this is pretty interesting. Like, this is a really fun problem for me. I know it deeply. I want to spend time on it. People seem to be getting value from it. It's really bad right now. I have so many ways I can make it better. And that was to me the impetus to, all right, I'm gonna quit my job and go full time on this and at least give it a year.
And so you started, it sounds like you basically built a community before you even went full time on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of community adoption was like, I mean, that's the signal, right? Build something people want. No point in spending much time on it if no one's gonna want it.
And then, so I guess one of the things that founders are always trying to figure out, especially technical founders, is how can I get this like marketing community side? How can I get like the branding right? How can I get people to actually want it? What do you think made Zeet different where you guys didn't have to like run after that?
I think there were two things. One was, I mean, we built it for ourselves. So we knew the pain points and the persona super well because, well, it's me.
Right.
If I want it, that's good enough. Then we knew other people like us who were going to have these problems. So we knew a bunch of engineers right now all around us who are also working on side projects or trying to figure out ways to make this happen. They'd be interested in it for the same reasons we are. Let's go have them try it. Then finding more and more communities. So I joined this community, Gen Z Mafia, in like June 2020. And it was just like young people in tech doing interesting things. And a bunch of the early like Gen Z Mafia side projects were all hosted on Zeet. There's just like more and more people in that adopted it. I think Midjourney was one of our first customers through that because the PM from Midjourney was in Gen Z Mafia.
Oh, wow.
And we just kind of scaled out from there.
So that's really interesting. If you were to restart the building process, what types of communities would you be looking at?
So we've partnered with a bunch of incubators. I think like groups like Founders Inc. are pretty cool because it's just people who, I love just finding rooms of smart people. If you get enough smart people or interesting people in the same room, interesting things happen.
100%.
So it's finding communities of wannabe builders or people who are shipping and just figuring out what their problems are, putting something out there. We had the worst onboarding, worst website, worst experience when it first started, but I could handhold 5 people and get them to try it. And that was good enough to get us to 10 people and so on and so on.
Okay. And then going off that, can you talk more about the team dynamics? And I assume you guys have a bigger team than you and the founders at this point. So more in terms of how you evaluate talent, because you came in so young. So how are you going about adding to the team and finding the right fit of people?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say that I've got all the answers here. This has been like a really interesting piece for me of it's very different than engineering. And going from being a IC and engineer to being a CEO and a founder, that's why I did it. But there's all sorts of new challenges. And so talent's been an interesting one for us. We are a bigger team now. We're a team of about 8 now. Ziha and I are the only ones here in SF. The rest of the team's all remote. But we kind of think of it as there's two personas. There's people who know what excellence looks like. So there's people who have seen really high quality and can act as a mentor. And then people who have really high growth trajectories and growth potential. And so in the context of my backstory and Bebo, I was one of those people who was on a really good growth trajectory. I was like, I kept emailing. I was really hungry. I wanted to make something happen. And if Sean had never responded to me, I would have found somewhere else to work. Like no matter what, I was going to get a job that summer and I was going to get here one way or another. But because Bebo had some mentors, some really, really high quality team, really high quality people in place, I could accelerate myself so much by being there and they could teach me so much. So it's a mix of having people who know what they're doing and people who really want to know what they're doing, really want to figure it out. I think that's been the biggest learning of keeping that mix. And then across that, there's like, you got to find people who are going to actually own a project. I think we talk a lot about ownership mentality at Zeet, of if you're an engineer, you've got an idea, cool. Can you have an idea, make a spec for it, get buy-in, build it, ship it, send the release notes.
Yeah.
Somebody has feedback. All right, how do you want to change it? Like you actually own this piece of the product all the way through.
And so how do you balance giving people ownership and then making sure that your product, like vision, mission, is aligned and it's still going like towards like a central point?
Yeah, alignment's important there. I think like you're constantly checking in with each other. So I'm a big fan of over communication rather than under communication. I think I learned that from one of my friends, Tyler, was a kind of growth, I don't know what his official title was, but ran a lot of the growth efforts at Vivo. He would always say this. It's like anytime he was going to make a change, he'd say what the change was 3 times and make sure everybody knew why this was happening. He wouldn't block on that, but he would make sure that clarity was fully dispersed, even if it got annoying. So we over communicate a lot, make sure everyone knows exactly what's happening. And so we can all be like, hey, that makes sense, but it seems like the opposite of what that guy said. Is there a problem here? So I think it's a communication exercise. It also changes a lot as different kind of company scales, as you scale through different stages of the company. Like it's super easy when there's 2 of us, just founders. For the first 19 months of the company, it was just Yao and I. That was, we moved in together. We had a whiteboard that we just built the whole company on. Wow. And it's easier then when you have 10 people. I'm sure it's going to be very different than when we have 20 people and 30 people. But haven't had those challenges yet.
And so what does that over communication look like? Do you guys have a linear? Do you have daily stand-ups? Like from an actual like nitty gritty, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we use linear for issue tracking generally. But big fan of async. We're a remote team. So most of the time it's just communicating in Discord. So every morning everybody says, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is my to-do list. Gives us all a chance to check in of, does this all make sense? Cool. Anyone can kind of raise an objection of, hey, that doesn't have anything to do with anything else that anyone else is working on. Why are we doing this? And then start of the week, middle of the week, end of the week, we all do a big team meeting kind of more synchronously of, hey, this is what we said. This is what we're going to work on this week. So we're going to try to have ship by the end of the week. How's it going? Cool. What did we actually get to? Figuring out the plan for the next week.
And you talk more about you and your co-founder and working 19 months together before building the team. Can you go more into the founder dynamics and more importantly, what you think makes a great founding team and how other aspiring founders that may be looking for a co-founder or they have a team, what should they look for in order to project, hey, this is how we need to work together to be successful?
I think Zia and I had a big advantage of this is our 3rd company together. So we already had a lot of how do we work together figured out in a couple of different like types of situations. We'd done the startup thing together. We'd done the big company thing together. We'd done projects where we're blocked by other people and just annoyed all the time together. We'd also done projects where we had complete ownership together. So we knew how to communicate between ourselves. We became roommates as part of this process. So we were just kind of living the same life for a little while. And again, going back to finding that initial, what is the product, since we were building it for ourselves and we had felt that pain so poignantly, we were pretty aligned on what the vision was. Then it was mostly a distribution of like, cool, who does what job? How do we actually split up this work, make sure it works well? And when it's just an engineering project, it's easy. We know where engineering strengths are, but we had to both pick up new skills, right? I had to learn how to do this community building at scale, right? At a larger scale. I had to learn how to market. We both had to learn how to recruit. He had to learn how to manage a team of engineers, not just a couple of engineers. And so that, I think, has been a interesting part of the learning process, is all sorts of new skills that you have to pick up along the way.
So you're living with the guy, you're working with the guy, you know, basically like spending a lot of time with each other. Did you ever get sick of him? Serious question.
No, it's a good question. I wouldn't say I'm sick of him. I do think it's important to take time with part too. Like, because of that, we had separate rooms. We had like, you know, there's the office room, which is our dining room at the time. Nice. But then we would have our own spaces too. we don't live together anymore. He moved out with his girlfriend. So I kind of asked the team was scaling up too. So I think it's important to take time apart for sure and like breathe and still be independent.
For sure.
But it meant that we were pretty aligned on what we should be working on and what's the status of everything.
So do you live in a hacker house now?
No, I wouldn't call it a hacker house. I live in the same place. So I live with a couple other people here in Founders Inc. So the Jake, who's CTO of Third Web, and Abe, who's works here at Founders Inc. And just like helped out with a bunch of different effing companies. The three of us all live together now.
So one thing that's really interesting to me is the fact that you've kind of seen Founders Inc. from, I would assume, nothing until now. It's like big spot in Fort Mason. What was it like watching that happen?
It's been pretty interesting. I think the first time I heard about Founders Inc. was before Twitch even almost. It was like just an idea still of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had a lab? If this whole like acquisition doesn't happen, if we don't end up going to a big company. I remember Furkan coming up and be like, we should go and like make a lab, just like get cool people into a room, make some cool stuff happen. I was like, I'm down. I'm here for it.
Love that.
2-year hiatus to work at Twitch, get the team on set up. But then the first time Founders Inc. as a name appeared, it was I think 4-person Discord group. And it was like me, Furkan, Jake, and Zeet. And I was just like, yeah, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make something happen here. Obviously, has since scaled up quite a bit. I think Ziao and I split off to do Zeet, and Furkan stayed focused on, I think, eventually him and Jake turn into Third Web at some of the first studio companies. But that was really the genesis of studio, and Furkan's just run, I think, in Third Web at the same time, which is insane.
And you mentioned most of your team is remote.
Yeah.
So, the first time I came into Founders Inc., like I could immediately feel the magic. Right. And it's like, I always told that to Omar. It's like, I've been, WeWorks, hundreds of co-working spaces, incubators, whatever it may be, around the country. And I was like, oh, there's something different here. But everyone is not only friendly, but I feel like open to collaboration. And if you need advice, even if you need someone to jump in and help you fix something in real time, or you're having an issue, they can come in. As a younger, either aspiring tech founder or someone looking to break into tech, how important is that community aspect versus being all virtual or having that virtual community? Like, do you feel like there's a stark difference, or do you recommend like, hey, maybe you should just come out to Silicon Valley or the Bay and kind of plunge in and make those connections in real life? Like, where do you see that kind of going as we get to the next generation of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I gotta say, I'm a little biased here because I've born and raised in San Francisco, so I've lived here my whole life. So I've kind of always, even during COVID, even during the peak virtual times, been surrounded by tech in Silicon Valley to some degree. I will say though, the energy here is distinctly different than when Founders Inc. was fully online, and there's pros and cons there. Like I remember, I think started as this 4-person Discord group, but quickly grew to 20, 30 people, however many. And we started one of the, I think, hallmark effing traditions, which was Ship It. So for those unfamiliar, Ship It is every Friday, all the companies get together and talk about, hey, what'd you do this week? How was the week? What are you working on next week? Kind of just like an accountability check-in.
Yeah.
And I remember those first couple Ship Its were, monumental to my journey as a founder and Zeet itself. We would have just a couple companies. It would be like Zeet and Atom Limbs and like What's Now Paper, What's Now Build Space, What's Now Banana. And we would just talk about everything that we did in the last week and everything we're working on. And it would turn into hour-long strategy sessions of just like these little mastermind groups of great founders getting together and being like extremely, extremely intense with each other. I remember, hey, yeah, we're trying to grow. That's our biggest thing right now. We've got some usage. We found communities kind of work for us. And getting asked, all right, how many communities are you in? Oh, we're in like 3, or we're in 4, or we're in 5. Cool. How many communities are you going to be in next week? Well, I would love to be in 10. It's like, great. How are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to try this. Okay, cool. Sounds great. Come back next week. How many communities are you in, Johnny? I'm in like 6. Why aren't you at 10? Oh, well, I got this thing came up or that thing came up. Bro, you can't do that. No, you said 10. What the hell? Or just like we would go super deep on everything that could have been different, everything that went wrong. Yeah. How do we actually set a goal, stay accountable to it, we were super intense about it. And it was like some of the most valuable time, I think, in the company building process for us, both because people cared, like other founders were getting invested in my problems and I was getting invested in theirs. We made a culture around accountability of if somebody said they were going to do a thing and then they just didn't do it at all, or they didn't at least make a valiant effort to do it, you'd get called out and there was like some embarrassment there. And then you would just like say a goal like, yeah, I'm gonna get 100,000 users by the end of the week. It's like, no, you're not. Like, it's not a reasonable goal, man. Come on, you got 10 right now. How are you gonna do that? Like, I just called BS.
I love that. Right in the meeting. So in real time, like somebody says that, you guys just jump in and call it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a small group, easy to do stuff like that.
Yeah,
and it's just like you had strong strategy, you had strong accountability, you had this culture of accountability, and then it just kept you sane too. I mean, this was the peak of COVID. It was so hard, I think, mentally to just like want to keep working and keep trying, just like feel like life was moving forward. This was like a way for me to benchmark my weeks of, okay, cool, it's Friday, it's ship it. Oh, I did say that. That was a whole week ago. Shit. Okay. Fuck, I gotta actually like do a bunch of work. I can't show up to ship it this Friday and not have done anything. Really kept us going.
So going off the sanity, can you tell us more about your daily routine? And I mean, you seem like you're doing so many things. You're managing a team. You've got so much going on. Can you break down kind of, how your day starts? At what points are you kind of taking that mental break, recharging, and making sure you're at the top of your capacity? Because you've been doing this since you were a kid. I mean, you've been working essentially full time and managing multiple projects at once. Like how do you kind of structure that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's again very different, I think, from the like engineer and IC capacity than managerial or founder capacity. I think the mental game of becoming a founder, especially in pandemic, because like, I mean, a lot of people were talking about it, but still not talked about enough. Yeah, it's hard. And I think things like Founders Inc. really made it possible for me. There are people who are going through the similar stuff, similar challenges. My routine nowadays, I wake up around 8. I try to not have any meetings till like 10. Try to get here then, so I have like the morning to wake up, figure out, hey, what's the biggest thing I could actually accomplish today? That's just try to make sure that happens. Sending that to-do list to the whole team, so that everyone can see, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I think I want to get done today. Anyone can be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Helps me visualize too. Do I have a really busy day today of I got 10 things on it, I got 5 things on it. I always think the advice of make sure you know what your one big thing is a great thing to think about. At Bebo, we set an A+ problem every week. It was like this: if nothing else, we have to accomplish this this week, and if we do that, it'll be a fuck yeah week. So we use that model.
I like a fuck yeah week. I like that.
It's not just good. It's like, if you do nothing for the entire week, you just play video games all week, you get this one thing done, you'll be proud of the week. What's that one thing? So if you can figure that out and accomplish it, rally is whatever resources you need, whatever timing you have to do. Sometimes it's a big lift, a whole new product launch. Sometimes it's just, oh yeah, I gotta send that email or I gotta make a great presentation for this thing or that thing. The size of the like output doesn't matter, but what's the thing that makes this a fuck yeah week?
How do you determine that one thing?
Talking to the team, figuring it out of, working backwards from a big goal. So maybe it's a revenue goal, maybe it's a user goal. What's the biggest thing? What's the biggest problem you have right now? So for example, most of, I think, early stage companies, the biggest problem is you're not at product market fit. You got to figure out how to get there. Cool. How do you get to product market fit? Well, you got to iterate as fast as you can, and you got to try as many things as you can as quick as possible. So you got to maximize your chances of hitting that home run, and you got to maximize the number of reps you can do in a week. So when you think about it in that framework, I got to get to PMF. Maybe right now the biggest problem is we've had 50 people try it this week, and we can't really learn enough from 50 people. We need to get 100 people to try it in a week so we can actually learn from them. Our goal this week is we need to get 100 people. All right, how do we do that? Maybe we just throw money at something because we have some channel that can get us to 1,000. Yeah. Maybe it's we got to go try a whole new thing. Like tasks all come later, but I really like working backwards from that like really high level goal of if you're not a product market fit, how do you get there? either maximize your chances of succeeding or number of iterations you can do in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So is Zeet at product market fit, would you say?
I wouldn't say we're there now. No, I think we've got hints. There's some people who say they're never at product market fit. I was talking to like the Retool founder, and he was quoting his insane revenue numbers. And Retool was like a giant company now.
Yeah.
And, he's like, no, we're close. We're almost there.
So what do you, like in your mind, do you have an idea of what product market fit would look like?
I think the best way I've heard it described, and I'll steal a framework from Furcon here, is it's like black ice. If you're driving on black ice, it's like suddenly the car gets away from you. Doesn't feel like you're pushing constantly to make it happen. You wake up and you're inundated with activity. You're inundated if you're doing a product-led growth effort, or you're inundated with emails of people asking you for it, or just it feels like, hey, I actually can't control this anymore. I can maybe steer it, but I'm not forcing it to happen every day. If you can go a month or two without doing any activity and it still is growing, that's a pretty strong signal. Most of the time, if you take your hands off the wheel, the car will stop. I know it's kind of breaks the driving analogy, but
Kind of going off that, I'm curious what you think about pivoting in general, because I heard Kevin O'Leary say this, the Shark Tank, one of the sharks, but he was like, if it's been 36 months and you're not generating positive cash flow or hitting your long-term goals from when you started, you take it to the back and you shoot it. That's what you do with it, right? So how do you view that in terms of more of a macro, in terms of like, okay, this isn't working, we need to pivot? It could even be minor, right? It doesn't have to be anything major, but how do you view that, and even kind of tying that into other founders and finding product market fit? At what point, whether that's a hard time frame, like what triggers would you see where it's like, okay, it's time to figure something else out?
So I'll give you a little bit of context on Bebo here, because I think it's an interesting story for this. Bebo was a company. During my time there, I think we pivoted to maybe a dozen products in like that 3 years.
Wow.
We had a core thesis around live video and consumer social, and so got really good at building those things. But we did everything from like a early version of Bitmoji to a Discord competitor. We built like a group FaceTime app. We built a live streaming app for esports. We built a Little League for esports, was the company that ended up getting acquired by Twitch at the end of the day.
Wow.
And probably a bunch more in between that I can't even remember anymore. The reason for that was the goal of Bebo was $1 billion or bust. And I think the most successful company that came out of Bebo, outside of the one that got acquired, was called Blab. We scaled that to millions of users using it. It was like a Twitch that you could call into.
Yeah.
It's like if we're doing a podcast right now, someone's listening, we're live streaming this, someone could just jump in and start asking questions.
Okay.
And actually be on camera, and like it's like a Twitch stream. Kind of like Periscope. But we scaled that a bunch, and Sean has a great blog out about kind of why that one got shut down. But we didn't think we could get it to $1 billion. $1 billion valuation. We didn't think that could scale to that extremely high goal. And so we shut it down. So tying that back to just like more general advice, I think it's hard to set a strict timeline of like 36 months shoot it.
Yeah.
It varies on, market and industry and all these other factors, but there is like don't just let yourself keep doing it because it's comfortable. If it's not working, make a big change and make big swings. It's kind of like only go for the 10x's. And if you can't hit any 10x improvements in a period of time, something's wrong. You got to constantly like be hitting home runs or starting over.
So I have a very different tangent. Has Zeet raised?
Yeah.
Is it public how much, or like valuations?
Yeah. So we raised initially from Founders Inc. That was that first 19 months. We raised like $100K that got us through all of that. We stayed super lean, Ziao and I. We then raised a pre-seed round from Race Capital, about $2 million from that. And then most recently, announced actually earlier this week, we raised $4.3 million from Sequoia Capital as our seed round.
Congrats.
Wow, congrats. Yeah.
Thank you.
So one of the things that's interesting to me, especially when I talk to like my non-founder friends, like my non-technical friends, is that they hear, oh, okay, someone raised, 1 million, 5 million. They must now have like a Bugatti. And so what I'm trying to get into is what do finances for like a founder like actually look like? Let's say, okay, you raised a seed, or even let's say pre-Series A. What do finances actually look like? Are you just eating like noodles every single night?
Yeah, my favorite term in Silicon Valley, especially amongst like that type of person who's really indexing on the money raised, is the paper millionaires. It's like you actually don't have any money.
Yeah.
I pay myself enough to like pay rent and eat food. I think pays for my lunch, which is great because it's catered here.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think most founders are, especially at the early stages, are rich by any stretch. I mean, the opportunity is there, but you got to work for it.
Going off that, what motivates you? Like at the end of the day, like is it money? Like what really lights that fire? Because I feel like that's a different answer for every founder in a sense, and I think it ties back to your background or kind of what maybe your long-term vision is with not only this company, but maybe it's a stepping stone. But go more into that in terms of like even from the beginning, like you said before, if it wasn't Sean and Bebo, you were going to find something else. So like what's ultimately driving your work ethic and passion?
For me, there's something really magical about the act of creation, and I mean that in a couple of different ways. There's like if I imagine superpowers, I'm like, if I could have any superpower, the ability to take an idea and just make it real is like super vague and super broad, but super powerful. It's actually something that there are people alive who can do, and that's kind of what I aspire to. Of there's a problem I see in the world, or there's something that I think should be different in the world, and I can make it happen. So I think what drives me now is the selfish desire to get really good at the act of creation. When I thought about this back when I found Bebo and kind of started that, it's like, okay, cool. What progress can I make working backwards from that super lofty goal once again? The first thing I can do right now is learn to code, because if I can code, I can take any idea and make a prototype of it.
Yeah.
No one's really going to respect a 14-year-old to be a manager, or like it's going to be hard to have sway over legit people. But on the internet, no one knows who you are. It's very much based on accomplishments. So if I get good at coding, I can make something.
Okay.
Then I kind of made the switch of, great, I'm not the best engineer by any stretch. I can make stuff happen. But now I'm actually much more focused on how can I rally people around a common vision and make it so that not only can I make a shitty version of something, but I can make it so that people come together and help me make a really great version of something. And if I get really good at that skill next, 10 years down the line, I'll be able to take any problem and actually work towards and make significant improvement.
So you're almost like adding tools to the toolbox, and there's kind of a grand vision of, well, what happens when you're done acquiring everything? Or is there ever a point when
I don't know if it's
you don't know,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's a constant, it's an infinite mountain to climb.
Yeah.
You'll always get better and better at it, and you'll get better at specialized versions of it. But right now, I can make any prototype of an idea. Great. Learning to hire this role, that role, this role, that role. Now I can take a company or an idea from nothing to something that exists on my laptop, to a website that exists, to a small team, going to a medium team, a big team, corporation. There's so much more to do.
Yeah.
And each one of those is a whole new skill set. So I want to get a base layer of everything I can, and make it so that I have as much ability to create as physically possible.
Okay.
We have some interesting things lined up for you.
Yeah.
Oh, joy.
We got some fun little segments. Well, I guess this is me. I dug into your Twitter. You have a very fascinating Twitter. You tweet a lot, but no, a lot of it is educational, right? You tweet a lot of threads. You ask questions, like you're communicating with the community. And you also have just some random stuff. So I went back a good amount. So I'll just read some stuff, and why don't we just react? So you tweeted here, I'm convinced some significant percentage of Uber drivers change their car clocks just to mess with passengers.
I think that's true. I think that's very
Why?
true. I cannot tell you the number of times I've gone into an Uber and I've been like, look at the Uber car clock and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
I looked down at my phone and they had just set their clock like ahead like 17 minutes. Like just arbitrary amount.
But what's the psychology?
I think I think they set it ahead just a little bit to stress you out. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think there's a little bit of joy in it.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
then also just like if you're so okay, I've seen two groups. There's people who set it ahead and there's people who set it behind. People who set it ahead,
Okay.
they definitely just want to fuck with you. They just want to stress you out. People who set it behind, they want you to miss your meeting. They
Want you to miss your meeting.
Yeah.
So this is espionage.
Yeah.
So if
So
I
think it
want
happens
to,
both ways.
But why would they want you to do that?
What else are you gonna do? It's fun.
so it's like I need to now create. If I want to take over someone else's
This is a
company,
really dystopian view of
society. You just hire a bunch of Uber drivers and have them set their clocks so that your competitors will miss their meetings. Whoops, missed a pitch to
craziest
Sequoia. My bad.
Craziest growth tactic. There's a nice. I do think there is a golden ground of like staying off by 5 minutes and you like, get stressed of, oh shoot, I'm late. Oh wait, no, actually, I am on time. Phew.
Yeah.
But I think that's a minority. I think most people are doing it to fuck with you.
Okay. Well, I think we're on to something here, so I'm just gonna keep running through these. Let's go with this one. This one's good. Every time there's an awesome historical event like this, I can't help but think, how many new baby blue swaddles will there be in 9 months? Biden babies trademark.
when was what's the timestamp on
So
that?
this has to be
Is that election?
Yeah, this has to be election. So 2020 September probably.
I was hanging out with some friends recently and realized just like there's periods of time, just like these spikes in birth rate.
Yeah.
You know, it's always fun to look at what was 9 months ago.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's a parent's birthday or parent's anniversary or
Yeah.
these crazy historical events. What was it like after World War II? This giant spike after all the troops got home.
Yeah.
9 months later. I think I like trends.
Did you trademark Biden babies?
I don't think it caught on.
But you didn't trademark
I
it.
didn't trademark it.
That's not a bad trade.
Not bad.
Let's-
Biden babies.
It's a whole clothing brand.
Next project.
Next project.
Write that
All right.
down.
You have the laptop.
I have the laptop. I'll write that down. But let's keep. I feel like this is fun. I like this. Okay. If I had a dime for every time a cold glass of water, some protein and crackers, and a 5-minute break to breathe has solved my problems, I'd never need to raise around.
Oh, I like that one. I forgot about that one. I mean, it's true. I feel like
Yeah.
the amount of times I've like stressed, had a headache. I don't know what it is. My dad always told me, it was like water, peanut butter on a cracker will solve like 90% of your problems. Doesn't
Really?
work,
That's what he
Go
said?
for a walk,
Huh.
and then that'll solve the last 10. And it's been remarkably true. It's not always the case, but
Yeah.
if ever I'm feeling something's wrong physically, or like I feel like a lot of mental, not mental health say, but a lot of just like when you get really in your head or stressed out about something,
Yeah.
most of the time you're tired or you haven't eaten or you need there's some physical correlation. And so peanut butter cracker, cold glass of water, that's my go-to.
Can you think of a time like specifically where something was happening and a peanut butter cracker solved it?
There was so I think going back to that time in high school when I was just like, this might have been related, but when I was just like had the worst sleep schedule, I was super unhealthy. I was just like 10 Red Bulls a day, 3 hours of sleep a night, working and then school. I'd get home and sometimes my family would all be asleep. I'd go like weeks without seeing them, but my dad would stay up sometimes.
Weeks without seeing your family while you live with them.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Wow.
Because I would just like get home at like 2, 3 a.m. My family's got work or school.
Where were you at like 10, 11, 12 a.m.?
Still the office, still at Bebo.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he's got a tweet here. Day in the life of a Gen Z founder. Finished all my calls for the day and went to go eat dinner. Wondered why all the lights were off. Missed my family dinner and is now 10 p.m. Oops.
I think that was the start of Zeet when I was still with my family.
Yeah.
Living at home.
Well, I love this because you can like tie it back to like specific events in your life and kind of philosophy. Like this almost shapes you as a person, right? You're almost thinking of these things based on what you're actually acting on.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how well I can I'm recalling the moment. It's not the exact like.
I'm surprised. I didn't think you'd remember, like, because I went. This is like 2020, pre-20. I mean, this been like 2-3 years, and I'm sure there's a lot more important things going on in your head.
Yeah.
Than these things.
So what's funny is, so I use Spotify for like music, right?
Yeah.
And I got my Spotify account when I was like 12, 13, I don't know.
I was just thinking this.
School. I have no playlists,
Mhm.
and every single song I've enjoyed or listened to since then, I've added to my liked songs. So I have like 2,500 liked songs in one just massive playlist. And what's cool about that is I have the chronology of the whole time. And so most of the time I just listen to the start, but every once in a while I'll just hit shuffle play.
Yeah.
And it'll just drop me in a random moment in time, and I'm transported back to it. I can remember exactly like the vibe I had at the moment.
I was just
like,
yeah.
That's my day now.
I was having this conversation with it wasn't Post Malone's manager, but it was another music manager, and he said the same thing, where it's like when they're thinking of marketing, right, and music in general, but it's like the most coveted thing in music is buying masters, so buying catalogs. So right, if you own Michael Jackson's catalog, Beatles catalog, like Jay-Z's catalog, whatever it is, like, because the nostalgia, it's like you play a record and it's the first thing your mind triggers. It's like, where was I when I was listening to this record, and what do I associate it with in my memory? And it goes way past like the actual song, right?
Totally.
Like, I feel like we can all, I mean, probably relate to that to a certain extent.
100%.
I feel like Spotify has a lot of power over my my mental attitude, and that sometimes I'll be like, I don't know how I feel right now. Let's hit shuffle play and find out.
Oh wow.
And it'll like, if I'm gonna like do some coding work tonight or something, I'll go and like just keep skipping until I get to a like 2016 like Bebo song of like, this is when I was peak hacker mode and just like programming all the time. I'll just turn off shuffle play and I'll just ride that wave for a little while.
Yeah.
And I'm way better at coding when I'm listening to that music.
Interesting.
What type of music would it be?
Back then, I think it was a lot of EDM. A lot of EDM, I think, for like focused and coding.
Did it have like lyrics in it?
I got more into lyrics, I think, over time. Like now, I would say my music is like all lyrics or stories, like across genres. Like I'll listen to country, I'll listen to rap, I'll listen to pop, I'll listen to like emo shit. Like I love stories now. Back then, it was just like EDM. If I could just like tune it out.
So one thing that's interesting is I think I've recently tried to cut out music just because I wanted to see how much I could actually, like, emotions I could feel without kind of having it warped. But before that, it's like whenever I worked, I would always play soundtracks, because if I heard any words in the song, I would not be able to focus, whether that was on writing, whether that was on like programming when I had like classes and stuff. And so I don't know how people are able to listen to like work and also listen to things with words. Like, does it not like, do you not start paying attention to the words?
I do, but I kind of have the opposite of like, if there's not words, then my brain starts filling them. And then I have like 3 threads going at the same time. And if I hear people talking or like a story going on, then I'm like, okay, cool. I can actually I have to focus on my one thing that I care about. And so it actually makes
that's interesting because I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like if there's lyrics, like I can't focus.
Like
I can't do a task if there's, and a pod, like I can't, well, I can't do something I'm like really thinking about and listen to a podcast. If I'm doing something operational, yeah, probably. But it's like, that's interesting. You said it like that, or like you'll fill the words.
Yeah, no, I like, if I'm, especially actually if I'm like writing things, I need lyrics. Like I need to have other people, because I feel like if I feel like I'm alone on this, then I'll just like, maybe I'll pull out my phone or I'll get distracted.
Yeah.
But if I feel like there's other things happening, there's activity, I gotta like keep up almost. It's like, oh, this guy's singing this whole thing about like this crazy thing he's doing. Yeah. I gotta be doing some crazy thing too. What am I doing? I gotta finish this. So I just like I'm locked in.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then
I don't know, big lyrics guy.
Okay, so I have one more, and this was gonna get into the startup pitch.
Oh no. He told me about this in the car.
Oh god.
But this one, okay. So this is what he tweets. I would pay so much money for a way to work from my shower.
Okay, this is great.
Well, I'm not done. I have more from you. Okay.
Please.
Fuck metaverse. When does the shower verse drop? Everything is better if you add while showering to the end.
Stand by it. And I've designed this a couple of different times and tried to make this happen.
Okay,
So
go ahead. Well, okay, I'll go. So the way I saw this, you want a way to work from your shower.
I would love that.
Okay, so this is how I thought of it. You know, a lot of people on the toilet, they think of ideas. Like a lot of people say that, or while walking, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay.
To each their own.
Okay. But so I saw it as, okay, if you're showering, let's go 15, 20 minutes. Maybe this is an ideating phase. So can we, now it's bad now that I'm thinking about it, but
It's been bad even before you were thinking about it.
but no, it's called Shower Buddy. And
Okay.
I hate that name. I hate everything about it already.
But it's an AI where you can either bring your phone or laptop, and it'll record whatever you say in the shower. Yeah, you're gonna have to speak. You're gonna have to talk during this, and it will do its best to group certain phrases, and then it'll text it to you.
So I've got this thing in my shower. You're gonna like this. I found this company. It's called Shower Notes, and they make waterproof paper and pens. And my entire shower wall is covered in these papers of
Wait, what?
That's pretty interesting.
everything. So I'm in the shower. You know, people talks about like shower thoughts.
Yeah.
I have just like 10 pads of this paper in my sink, like underneath my sink.
Yeah.
And every time I run out, I put a new one up. And every single shower, I'm just in there. And sometimes it's like a to-do list. Sometimes it's like a architecture diagram. Sometimes just some random thoughts, some random drawing. But
Yeah.
I just doodle and draw in the shower. And it's the best innovation I've ever bought.
Huh.
And
That's interesting.
it's the best thing. It's not AI based, I'm sorry to say.
It's okay.
It doesn't have the brain
It's
of
okay.
Shower.
I was going for a quick cash grab on a raise, so I wanted to
Is it
put
on
that.
the blockchain?
It's not on blockchain. It's also not cohort based. So I think there's an opportunity.
That's a no for me. It has to be cohort based.
But that's not productive, though, right? Well, it is, but that's not what you want here.
It's close. It's not quite there.
It sounds like you want to be able to take Zoom calls from the shower.
That's the idea.
So that's the idea. You want to be able to.
I don't want to have to leave. So like I love showers. I'm just like it's
Okay.
warm.
But do you think do you have your best ideas during?
sure.
Oh, you do.
Yeah, if I'm like stressed, I'm like, oh god, I got at least like 10 things, 15 things I'm like thinking about. I don't know how they all fit together.
Mm-hmm.
Shower. And then I draw it on the shower notes. I come out with this piece of paper. And I'm like, I figured it out, guys. I think Zia was probably seeing me in a towel with a piece of paper, just like I figured it out in those first couple months of living together.
The physical
working together.
good thing is interesting because I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, you
I
went
was
straight to AI.
I will say I have ruined it slightly of my iPhone's waterproof, and so I do end up taking my phone into the shower with me now. Which
Okay.
is like a horrible bad habit because it like then I get distracted by notifications and other stuff going on. But
Showerverse, I feel like that should be trademarked
Showerverse,
Yeah.
Showerverse.
because you're like, screw the metaverse. It's like,
So my biggest problem with the living and working in your shower, there's two big problems. There's one, I'm gonna waste a bunch of water, and I feel bad about that. I can't like do it all day.
okay.
Three big problems actually. Two, your skin, it's gonna get like all wrinkled.
Yeah.
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 You can't do that all day.
Can't do that.
And three, I can't bring my computer in there.
No.
I can't type nearly as fast on a piece of paper or on my phone as I can on a computer. So I remember one time, and this has been a long running thing for me. I think when I was like 12 or something, my buddy and I tried to design it's kind of like a box that would just recycle water, and it was like saline water.
Okay.
And keep it hot. It was like a vertical hot tub almost that you could just get into, and it would just constantly rain water down on you. And it had like gloves that you could put your hands into, so you could reach to your computer. Kind of like what's the it's like one of those like, science labs.
Wait. So you're sitting in a bathtub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or,
And then
so, sorry, this box is in the bathtub. It's like a big metal box.
it's a big metal box.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get in.
Okay.
Maybe there's a chair inside. Maybe there's not.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Okay.
Starts raining water down on you, but it's not just water.
Like a shower.
Like a shower
Okay.
does,
Okay.
You-
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
You might have heard of it.
But instead of it just being water, it's saline, so it doesn't dehydrate your skin. It's like what they put
wow.
in pools, so like you can
Yeah,
open your eyes
yeah.
underwater, right? But no chlorine.
Oh.
So It's just warm saline.
Yeah.
Recycles the saline, so it keeps it's constantly.
Yeah.
And then instead of you just like having a desk in front of you, it's like one of those. Ever been in like a bio lab where there's like a really intense closed environment
Yeah.
to get into?
Yeah.
And they've got like the gloves that you can put your hands into to reach into the area where the chemicals are.
Yeah.
It's that, but then you can put your laptop in there. So you can basically sit in this warm box
Yeah.
that's constantly raining saline on you and type.
Huh.
And that would be my ideal work environment.
That's interesting. Because it's like you're almost reversing, like they have standing desks now. You're almost doing like an entirely different version of that.
It'd be great.
Can you make a keyboard water resistant? Like theoretically?
I don't know why not. I mean, I feel like the biggest thing is like the connector to the computer, right?
So what I'm thinking is, okay, you get like a tray, you float it on the bathtub, you get a water resistant keyboard, and then you wall mount like a 32-inch monitor
You could do that.
in a waterproof casing.
Ooh.
And
I'm just super happy I got you thinking of something.
for once. See, this could work.
I love it.
I like that idea. I'd be worried about dropping the keyboard in the water. Like, is this a bath now? or is
So
this
now
still
it's a
shower?
subscription service. Every month you get a new keyboard.
But we're still in the bath.
If you must. But yes, yeah.
The topic of video calls is a major concern, though. Like, are you naked in this? Are you in a bathing suit? Are you fully clothed?
That's more of a society problem, not a technical problem, right? It's like if you bring an engineer onto Zeet, you're like, look, I will give you this offer, but you will be in Zoom calls and I will be in the shower.
Well, you don't. Why do you have to be on video all the time in Zoom calls?
That's true.
Right.
I mean, you could build a culture around this.
Right. Like
it's going to affect the team.
you could
culture a little
record.
bit.
You could record Loom videos doing this.
Yeah,
Right.
the hair's just always wet, and there's always just like a little bit of background, just like.
Yeah. Like that. That would be a fun onboarding. Like for new employees. It's
You
like
and
if
I have
it's all-
very different definitions of fun.
Oh god.
It's like, how do we make this enterprise? That's the thing, right? It's like, how do we scale it?
You gotta get. How do you get Amazon to buy 1,000? It's already seats, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah. It's
shower
already
seats.
shower seats. That's not bad. It's not great. Like we're not.
There's a reason this hasn't happened yet.
I mean,
there's something, right?
Defining category kings.
we we did something here.
Something has definitely happened here. I mean, we all agree shower thoughts is like a real phenomenon. We all
Yeah.
agree it's nice to be warm and ideate.
Well, we came a long way because I initially pitched Shower Buddy, and that's
Shower
just.
seats is a long way from Shower Buddy.
Thankfully.
Well, yours. You know what's so interesting to me? You had so much more like built-in thoughts on the physical capabilities, where I thought you'd just be thinking of, okay, well, how can I just create a tech-based tool to optimize my thoughts? So it's like you had way more of an ecosystem around it.
The act of creation. It's all. It's what's the perfect.
Like
version?
yours was like a Shark Tank pitch. Like,
Shark Tank. See, now there's some branding there. Of like,
wow.
We're going on Shark
Oh
Tank.
my God. I think he got something there.
entrepreneur tank, no. Tech tank, no.
No.
There's something though.
I think this is
Another
one of
S
those 36 months you take it in the back and you shoot it.
This is a 36 seconds.
This is the 36
seconds
seconds.
and we're out.
I think that's probably a good place to.
Before it gets any worse.
I feel like this is better than shocking the kids,
Anything's better
right?
than
This is
shocking
better.
kids.
Like we told you the first pitch I had.
Yeah, that's
Like
that's-
they're
that's
getting
true.
periodically better as far as real world application, right? And PR. The PR from this one is the PR from this is good. I feel like a lot of people have the desire to replicate the shower experience when they're thinking.
You ever see those guy sits under a waterfall? Looks so at peace. Just like
That is true.
That's true.
That is true.
that, but 24/7, and you can work from there.
I mean, that's good branding. That's a good tagline. I mean, that's
You just gotta figure out how to make it
QVC.
happen.
And that's what you're here for.
I'll come back when we got this hardware lab at I think, so I can
Oh,
move
yeah?
downstairs.
Ooh, let's see how many of these Founders Inc. Company founders we can snipe for this.
Right, we ran into the guy that was working out of there a few days ago. He told us to come check it out. Now we have a reason.
Now we have a reason.
There you go.
On that note, Johnny, where can everyone find you?
Best place to find me is probably on Twitter _Johnny Dallas _ or if you're an engineer, GitHub, the only Johnny. I'm on LinkedIn, Johnny Dallas, but Twitter is more fun and GitHub is more interesting.
Awesome.
Well, everyone should be very aware of his Twitter now, and
Extremely.
his range. So
Yes.
so it's like if you're not gonna follow Johnny after this, that's your problem, because we've clearly established how much he can cover on his Twitter, right? It's not just a tech experience. We have a little bit of everything here.
I will say I probably tweeted that from the shower. That shower. Like I think that may have been in the moment.
Stroke of genius.
I love it.
On that note, thank you, everyone. I honestly don't know which camera I'm looking at, but thank you, everyone, for listening / watching this episode of The Doc. Make sure you leave us a comment, like, subscribe, rate us on iTunes, wherever you're listening to this. And with that, we will see you next week.
All right, we're out.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.